My brother gifted me a mansion, but before long, someone broke in, wielding a knife in the dead of night. Avid, you framed me, causing my wrongful imprisonment and the destruction of my family. David was my brother's name, and I instantly realized I was being used as a scapegoat. But before I could say a word, a knife slit my throat. After the police shot the crazed assailant dead at the scene, David arrived with his wife, sneering, "But brother, thanks for taking care of my problem and leaving me a fortune. I'll enjoy everything you left behind. Rest in peace." His wife snuggled into his arms obediently. "Ave, I told you I would help you get everything he had, and I did. When I woke up again, I was back on the day my brother gave me the mansion. Pete, you've led me through thick and thin for so many years. As a token of my gratitude, I want to give you this mansion. Now that you're the big boss of a publicly traded company, you and Sarah should have a more impressive place to live." Hearing the familiar voice, I snapped back to reality. Looking at the smiling David in front of me, I realized I had been reborn. In my previous life, I accepted the mansion David gave me, and a few days later, someone slit my throat one night. Now I understood that David publicly bought a mansion in front of so many reporters to expose his address to everyone, then secretly sell it to me, just to use me as a scapegoat. This way, he could not only have his enemy commit murder but also take everything from me, killing two birds with one stone. Seeing that I didn't say anything, my wife, Sarah, said, "Honey, Dave is like a brother to me. It's just a small gesture, so don't hesitate." I sneered inwardly. She had never taken my arm in public, but at this moment, she was so close to David. If I hadn't lived through it once, I would have thought they were just siblings. But now I knew that she and my best brother were already having an affair and wanted to help him kill me. This time, now that I understood everything, I wouldn't let them manipulate me again. The murderer would be released in 3 days. Until then, I would be fine as long as I didn't move in. Keep it. I'll buy my own place if I want to live somewhere. Normally, David and I had a great relationship. We often gave each other gifts and never refused, but this time, my answer surprised them. David's face turned ugly. "Pete, what are you?" Sarah frowned, displeased. "Peter, what's wrong with you? Dave is being sincere. Why are you refusing? Do you want to hurt his feelings?" I chuckled and looked at their bodies pressed close together. "He won't be hurt. Aren't you keeping him warm?" Hearing this, Sarah immediately flared up. "Peter, what do you mean? I only treat Dave like a brother. We've been married for so many years. Don't you trust me?" I didn't say anything, and Sarah became even more annoyed. But David stepped in first. "Sarah, don't be angry. Pete is probably jealous that he won't accept it. We should keep our distance in the future so Pete doesn't overthink things." He said this, but his body didn't move at all. Instead, he moved even closer to Sarah. Then, he turned to me and smiled. "Pete, don't worry. I only see Sarah as a sister. There's nothing between us. If you don't like the mansion, I'll give you another surprise later." I smiled slightly. "Okay. Just don't let it be a fright." "How could it be?" David looked a little embarrassed, and my wife glared at me, saying I was ungrateful, forgetting the brothers who had gone through thick and thin with me just because the company had gone public, and showing off my power. But I didn't want to pay attention to them anymore. As I turned to leave, I said, "Think what you want. I have things to do. I'll go first." Behind me, Sarah continued to say I was ungrateful. But at this moment, I was too lazy to pay attention to them because I really had important things to do. Before I died, I saw the person clearly. It was the company's former CFO, John, who had been imprisoned after David accused him of embezzling a huge amount of kickbacks, but now it seemed it wasn't that simple. Otherwise, he wouldn't have sought revenge on David as soon as he was released. I needed to reorganize and analyze the case from that year. I couldn't just let go of the hatred from my previous life. But the events of that year had happened too long ago, and I had no clue where to start. That night, I received a message from Sarah. "Something came up tonight. I'll be home late." If she had come home, she would have known I hadn't been back. Now it seemed she was probably out fooling around with David, otherwise, she wouldn't have known I was still at the company. Not long after, I heard the sound of the elevator going upstairs and subconsciously turned off the lights in the office. It must be Sarah and David. I wanted to see what they were doing at the company so late. I heard their conversation outside the door. "Baby, I've already had my brother inquire. That guy John will be released 3 nights from now. The media has already put the news of me moving into the mansion at the top of the trending topics. When he comes out, he'll immediately go to the mansion to take revenge on me. When he can't see clearly, he'll definitely mistake Peter for me. Then, the police will execute that guy John for murder. I'll never have this problem again, and we won't have to hide from Peter anymore. It's just a pity that Peter isn't taking the bait. He doesn't want to accept my gift. Dave, don't worry. I'll definitely help you find a way. Yeah, he was jealous today. You didn't go home tonight. He didn't suspect you, did he?" Sarah said disdainfully. "Suspect? He's always been a lapdog by my side. If my parents hadn't made me marry him, I wouldn't have bothered with him. Even if I play around, he wouldn't dare mention divorce." "That's good, but just thinking about the look on that idiot's face when he finds out his brother and wife have been sleeping together for 3 years is hilarious." "Baby, there's no one at the company tonight. We didn't have enough fun at the hotel. How about we do it here?" Sarah giggled. "You're so bad." Then, I heard the sound of them breathing heavily. That bitch Sarah, all my tolerance and care for her over the years had been wasted. Sarah and I met in high school. The first time we met, she was being bullied by the school bully, and I fought them off, getting injured in the process. From then on, I often protected her. To go to the same university as her, I even gave up a better 211 school. After we started dating, I was even more attentive to her. I raised money when her parents were sick and ran around taking care of things. She was afraid of the pain of childbirth, so I never dared to let her get pregnant. But I never expected that in her heart, she had never taken me seriously and was even thinking of helping someone else kill me. Soon after, the two of them went into the office next door. My heart was filled with anger, but now wasn't the time to expose those two. I still needed to collect evidence of David's harmful actions so he could suffer the consequences. I quietly left the company. What I couldn't understand was, even if someone was framed, they wouldn't kill someone for revenge after being released from prison, right? What exactly did David do to John? 3. On the way back, I suddenly remembered a very important person. I called him and gave him some instructions, then went home. I had just fallen asleep when I heard the sound of the door opening. When I came out of the bedroom, Sarah was startled. I noticed the dense hickeys on her neck. Realizing something, Sarah quickly covered them with her clothes, feeling a little guilty. "Honey, you're not asleep yet?" I said calmly. "Yeah, just got back from the company." Hearing this, Sarah's smile froze, then she smiled again. "I just went to the company to find you." "I did. And expect you to come back early. Really, you have to make it up to me." As she spoke, she took my arm and started acting coy. In the past, I was most afraid of this. I couldn't wait to immediately pull her into my arms. But at this moment, I couldn't bring myself to feel anything. I just calmly pushed her away. "Honey, what's wrong? I was just saying a few words for Dave during the day. You're not still angry, are you? I just think you guys shouldn't be so polite after so many years of brotherhood. You used to accept things directly when you gave each other gifts, but this time you hesitated, which inevitably made him overthink. You can't be where you are today without these brothers. If you have conflicts with them, how far do you think you can go? I'm doing it for your own good. Why don't you just take the house?" I sneered inwardly. She was doing it for my own good, but she wanted to kill me. I remained calm and said coldly, "Since you think they're so good, why don't you go with them?" Hearing this, Sarah immediately got angry. "Peter, what nonsense are you talking about? I'm your wife. How can you say such a thing? My parents really misjudged you back then, actually letting me marry a man with no vision like you." I sneered. "I really don't have vision, otherwise, I wouldn't have married a woman like you. Sarah immediately became angry and threw a cup at me, breaking my forehead. Pointing her finger at me, she cursed, "Peter, do you even want to keep living like this? If you do, then accept the house. I've been with you for so many years. If you don't want to live there, I want to. I even held a celebration party in your name for the people who contributed to the company to build your reputation. You've really disappointed me." Just as I was about to speak, Jack, the company's CFO, suddenly called. "President Peter, Sarah said there's a celebration party this afternoon. I saw you weren't at the company, so come early. The brothers can't wait." Alt. Hoff. I didn't know what Sarah was up to. The company had just gone public, and I couldn't dampen the morale of the employees, so I agreed. Seeing that I agreed, Sarah left satisfied, telling me not to disappoint her and to be there. That afternoon, I went to the location Sarah had sent me in advance. I found that it was less than 100 meters away from the mansion. For, after entering the hotel, many employees had already arrived. Sarah and David smiled strangely when they saw me. But I ignored them and sat down calmly, then turned on the recording function, hoping to get some useful information from David while he was drunk. When the time came, many people who had made great contributions still hadn't arrived. Instead, a few uninvited guests came. "Tom, Jerry, what are you two doing here?" These two had been slacking off all year, violating company rules many times and even molesting female employees. They were practically like thugs. If David hadn't been stopping me, I would have fired them long ago. As soon as I finished speaking, David tried to smooth things over. "Pete, they were passing by. Since they ran into us, why don't we let them stay?" Then, he instructed the two of them, "You two, keep your eyes open later and keep President Peter's glass full." The two of them quickly agreed. After the celebration party started, everyone began to toast me. Soon, I felt a little dizzy. I refused to drink anymore, but David suddenly held me down tightly, having Tom and Jerry pry open my mouth. "President Peter said before we came that he's happy today. Don't treat him like a human. Whoever else wants to toast him should hurry up. Don't keep President Peter waiting." Seeing this, everyone hesitated, until the CFO directly poured a glass of wine into my mouth. "President Peter, I toast you." I was dizzy from the alcohol and couldn't speak because they were holding me down. David said loudly, "See, President Peter has no objections. Everyone, toast him another glass. Whoever doesn't toast him is disrespecting President Peter." Hearing this, everyone didn't dare to hesitate and quickly poured wine into my mouth. David whispered in my ear, "Pete, I offered you a mansion, but you didn't want it, and you made me personally bring you in. You're really cheap, huh?" I was furious. This bastard was actually resorting to force. But at this moment, I was too drunk to resist. Seeing that he had achieved his goal, David excitedly put his arm around Sarah and kissed her in front of everyone. But everyone pretended not to see it. When the celebration party ended, David dismissed everyone. At this time, David's right-hand man, Mark, arrived late and said something in his ear. David smiled, then had Mark take me to the mansion. After tying my hands and feet, David looked at me mockingly. I looked at him coldly and spat in his face. "David, what exactly do you want to do? I treated you like a brother and promoted you to the position of vice president of the company, but I never thought you would treat me like this." As soon as I finished speaking, David kicked me. "Damn, what are you barking about? But now that things have come to this, I might as well let you die knowing why. Do you think I bought the mansion at the press conference so everyone would know I would live here? Do you remember John? He's being released tonight, and he'll come here to kill me, and you'll be my scapegoat. Also, I've already sent someone to the prison and told that guy John the detailed location of the mansion. Just wait obediently." I gritted my teeth. "You framed him and caused him to embezzle kickbacks, and you still have the nerve to say that." David smirked. "So you knew. But don't you want to know why I'm so sure he'll come to take revenge on me?" I muttered to myself, if it was just because of the injustice, he wouldn't commit murder, unless... David laughed. "That's right. I arranged for someone to play his wife to death, and I had someone kidnap his ass on and sell him to human traffickers. Every time I went to visit him, I would tell him about playing with his wife and his son being dismembered by human traffickers to provoke him, and then use him one more time to help me take your place. I was shocked and stared at him intently. Does Sarah know about this? David said smugly. Do you think she would still help me come up with this plan to kidnap you if she knew I had played someone else's wife to death? By the way, you're not recording, are you? David found my phone on me, looked at it, and sneered. I knew it! He smashed my phone on the ground and stomped on it. Peter, you pathetic simp, you never thought that in the end, everything would become my wedding dress. I'll come to collect your body tomorrow morning, ha ha ha. After laughing, David knocked me unconscious with a stick, then laid my body flat, arranging it to look like I was sleeping. Before leaving, he didn't forget to tell me not to lock the door to the mansion. After making sure that the Avenger John could get in smoothly, he left with peace of mind. I don't know how long later, I was shaken awake. Opening my eyes groggily, I looked at the person who came and smiled slightly. Did you record everything he just said? 5. Mark played a section of the recording. Yeah, I recorded it. This evidence is enough to prove that David is a scumbag who hurts innocent people. Good, with this evidence, we don't have to worry about David not confessing. I nodded and sneered inwardly. David probably never imagined that the lackey who had followed him for so many years was actually my man. In fact, my brotherhood with David started in high school, and after we went to college, we both fell in love with my current wife, Sarah. But at that time, he chose to give up because he wanted to start a business. And I finally got together with Sarah after pursuing her for a long time. Later, David's business failed, but I created a publicly traded company in just a few years, becoming famous. After learning that David was down on his luck, I contacted him. After coming here, I arranged for Mark, who was familiar with the business, to help him quickly familiarize himself with the environment. Before long, Mark became his right-hand man, but he didn't know that I had saved Mark's life in a fire. And he was doing his best to help David because of my arrangement, and I had always thought that David was focused on his career and that his relationship with Sarah was clearly defined, but I never expected that his arrival would push me into the abyss. In my previous life, before I could react, I was killed by them without any preparation. This time, I was not only going to avoid his schemes but also turn the tables on him. After Mark sent me the evidence, I sent it directly to my lawyer. After that, I didn't leave immediately but waited quietly with Mark for John, the company's former CFO who had been harmed by David. Time passed little by little, and finally, at 3 in the morning, there was movement at the door. I held my breath. Now that John had lost his mind because of his hatred for David, we had to be extra careful. In the moonlight, I saw John's face clearly. His eyes were red as he looked around, then moved closer to the bed. The next second, he suddenly lunged forward, stabbing the dagger fiercely into the quilt that I had disguised in advance. David, you bastard, you destroyed my family. Die! The angry roar, like in my previous life, echoed throughout the bedroom. But although he was crazy, he wasn't stupid. The moment he missed, he knew he had failed. Just as he was anxiously looking around for David, Mark and I came out of hiding. Seeing us, John immediately rushed over. John! It's Peter, David is using you! I shouted loudly. Hearing this, John's eyes widened. I walked into the moonlight and looked at him. After seeing my face clearly, the ferocity on John's face gradually subsided. President Peter, how could it be you? I heard David's brother in prison say that he bought this place, and there was news on the headlines, but how? I said, David did buy this place, but he's just spreading false information, deliberately making everyone think he lives here, but in reality, he just wants to use you to kill me and then take my company. Hearing this, John immediately understood everything and gritted his teeth. That bastard, what a calculation! At this time, Mark said, Director John, President Peter and I know about your hatred for David, but revenge shouldn't be solved by killing him. President Peter has a plan that needs your cooperation. If it succeeds, we can guarantee that not only will David be discredited, but he will also be put in jail for the rest of his life. John thought for a moment and said, "Well, now that I've missed my chance, I can only rely on your help to sanction him. Regardless of whether it succeeds or not, I will eventually make David pay the price he deserves. I can't let my wife and children die in vain." John's eyes revealed a trace of determination. I knew how strong his hatred for David was, so I told him my plan. 6. In my previous life, after John realized he had killed the wrong person, he waited for the police to arrive out of guilt. He originally wanted to turn himself in, but when the police arrived, he saw David coming with Sarah in his arms. As the saying goes, enemies meeting are especially jealous. John immediately rushed towards him. Coupled with a recent brutal murder case in the city, the police thought he was the murderer and shot him dead on the spot, fearing he would endanger the public. The next morning, someone found bloodstains at the entrance of the mansion and called the police. Soon, the police arrived at the mansion, and police cars surrounded the mansion. When the police officers saw the blood-stained bedding on the bed and John covered in blood, they immediately became vigilant. "Did you do all this?" one of the police officers asked cautiously. John said foolishly, "I killed the person, but I found that I seemed to have killed the wrong person." After speaking, he stood up and walked blankly towards the police officer. The other party quickly warned vigilantly, "Stop, don't move." John stopped, but kept muttering the words "killed the wrong person." "Then who do you want to kill?" John looked at the crowd, scanning the crowd circle after circle. Finally, his eyes became fierce and he pointed at David, who was rushing over. "I want to kill him. He killed my whole family. I want him to pay for it." Although he said that, I had already told John not to act rashly, otherwise, he would be shot dead by the police. To take revenge, he really listened to me. Seeing that John didn't act rashly, the police naturally wouldn't attack him. However, a few police officers took the opportunity to subdue him. David in the crowd put his arms around Sarah and took a few steps forward, saying to the police officer, "This person is mentally disturbed. I suspect that he is related to the recent murder cases. I hope he will be executed as soon as possible to avoid endangering public safety." Hearing this, the already panicked onlookers also shouted, "Murderer, execute him. This kind of person shouldn't live in the world. He killed so many people, this kind of person should be dragged out and fed to the dogs." Watching the excited scene, I knew lying on the bed that the time had come. I got up from the bed, and Mark, who was hiding in the dark, also came out. I walked to the police and handed the recording from last night to the police. "This is the evidence of David harming people." Seeing that I wasn't dead, David and Sarah's eyes were filled with shock. Looking at their mouths, they clearly wanted to say, "How are you still alive?" David looked at Mark in surprise and said something. But they didn't dare to make a sound. "Didn't expect it? I saw through your conspiracy a long time ago. W. 8 to be sanctioned." The police officer looked at me and at the blood on my body. I smiled slightly. "This is chicken blood." David's face was full of anger, but the moment the police opened the recording, he was immediately filled with fear. But the next moment, Sarah, who was holding his arm, suddenly shouted, "You're really something, Peter. Dave has been working diligently for the company. He just wants more shares of the company. How could you come up with such a trick to deal with him? He's your brother. Do you have to hate him so much?" Hearing this, David immediately grabbed onto her like a lifeline. "Peter, I treated you like a brother, but you actually colluded with others to put on this show." But as soon as he finished speaking, John pointed at David and said, "David, you still want to quibble. Back then, you embezzled a huge amount of kickbacks from the company but blamed it on me, not only making me sit in jail for 3 years, raping my wife to death, but also having someone run over my son. How can your heart be so vicious? A person like you should be cut into pieces. My only wish in this life is to watch you die." 7. John said excitedly, but the police didn't know the truth and feared that he would rush over, so they controlled him even more tightly. In the end, the police took everyone at the scene away. After the confrontation at the police station, David stubbornly said that the recording was just someone imitating his accent, and it was used to frame him. Sarah, in the name of my wife, constantly defended David, portraying David as a victim. In the end, the police let us go back temporarily due to insufficient evidence and told us to accept the investigation at any time. I understood this, but John wasn't satisfied with this. He wanted to see David brought to justice immediately. I was afraid that John would do something impulsive, so I took him back to the company. Since the recording wasn't sufficient as evidence, I would prepare an even bigger surprise for him. However, David was still haunting me and actually came to the company. Seeing us, he immediately showed a cheap look. Peter, I didn't expect you to use this method to deal with me, but don't think you're sure of winning. What doesn't belong to you, you will eventually lose. As he spoke, he pinched Sarah hard. Then, he looked at John again. You bastard, I didn't expect you to still not be crazy after suffering so much. I think that's because you haven't seen the scene of your wife and children being played with, right? Do you want me to describe that scene to you? It's so exciting just thinking about it. Hearing this, John's eyes immediately turned red. You bastard, you're asking for death. John was about to rush over, but I held him back tightly. It could be seen that David wanted to provoke John to achieve the effect of being a victim and to reverse black and white. I stared at David coldly. The evil things you have done will eventually be punished. Also, I'm officially firing you now. Get out of here! Before David could speak, Sarah sneered, Peter, who are you firing? Dave has 30% of the shares of the company and is also a shareholder. You can't just fire him if you want to. This bastard, I treated David like a brother back then and gave him stock, but I never thought that in the end, it would become his trump card. I looked at Sarah coldly. Sarah, David has harmed so many people. You are an accomplice and can't escape responsibility. Wait to be arrested. After speaking, I was afraid that if I stayed any longer, I wouldn't be able to control my urge to hit them, so I left with John. But as soon as I returned to the office, the employees outside became restless. Peter, you petty person who sees profit and forgets righteousness, you don't deserve to be our boss. Hurry up and give way. That's right, Director David is the good boss in our hearts, often rewarding us, but you have always deducted workers' wages at will. We have tolerated it, but you have done things to slander Director David. Today we will seek justice for Director David. The door to the office was knocked on. Mark went over to open the door and saw many employees walking towards here angrily. The ones who kept pouring me drinks at the celebration party. Now I understand, they had been bought off by David. But I was the one who authorized David to reward the employees. I realized that this little man had taken all the credit for being a good guy. David, with Sarah in his arms, looked at me mockingly from behind the crowd. It was as if he was saying, Peter, you'll never outsmart me. But seeing this, I didn't panic. Instead, I found the email I had sent to David, asking him to implement the reward system in my memo. The reason I went straight to the memo was because I knew without looking that David, being the kind of person he is, would have cleared all my emails before I returned. A petty person like him wouldn't allow me to leave any evidence behind. But he didn't know that I always had the habit of saving memos. I asked Mark to show everyone the screenshots. Seeing this, the crowd stopped and looked at David. Director David, what's going on? Are you lying to us? Seeing this, David immediately shouted, Peter's screenshots must be fake. Peter, you're really good at twisting the truth. First, you falsely accused me of being a murderer, and now you're framing me. I was really blind to have considered you a brother. Mark spoke up for me, the truth will come out. David, I've been by your side for many years, and I know what kind of person you are. Stop talking nonsense. I've already found evidence of the bad things you've done. Hearing this, David was stunned. Then, Mark inserted a USB drive into the computer, and soon, a video of David doing bad things began to play. David's eyes widened, and he subconsciously said, I clearly deleted these just now, how could you? As soon as he finished speaking, David realized he had said the wrong thing, but it was too late. John had already recorded his reaction. Even if the video could be faked, David's reaction in front of so many people was equivalent to admitting his guilt. Mark looked at him and said, "David, you're probably curious about why I have these. Do you remember what you asked me to do last night?" David murmured to himself, "Police station." After saying that, his eyes turned fierce. "Mark, I treated you so well, how could you betray me?" I looked at him with a sneer. "David, don't misunderstand. Mark has always been my man. He was originally arranged by me to help you. He had found videos of you doing bad things on your computer before. At first, I didn't believe him when he told me, and I always thought someone was framing you, but now it seems that you are an unforgivable murderer. You thought I would convict you with a recording, but you don't know that this is the surprise I gave you." At this time, the employees who were originally on David's side also began to distance themselves from him, afraid that the murderer would harm them. At this moment, even Sarah's eyes widened. "Dave, didn't you say that was just a lie you made up to deceive John? How is it all true?" David lowered his head and said nothing, but after a while, he suddenly laughed. "Peter, do you think you're so great? You've always been better than me since high school, and you even stole my woman in college. But in the end, didn't you just become a simp for this bitch?" Suddenly, David grabbed Sarah's collar and choked her throat. This sudden turn of events caught Sarah off guard, and she couldn't breathe for a moment. She said in a hoarse voice, "Dave, what are you doing?" David smiled coldly. "You thought I left in the first place because of what? Didn't you like me more? Why did you still respond to Peter's pursuit? What I hate most is a two-timing bitch like you. I left in the first place, and when you got married, I came back to break you up, to give you a reputation for cheating. I also wanted to use you to take everything from Peter and make his life a joke. Then, he pointed at everyone, and you're just a bunch of opportunistic weathercocks. A little favor is all it takes to betray me. You have no reason to live in this world. Go to hell." Looking at David, who was now insane, I felt unusually calm inside. To put it nicely, his heart was full of paranoia. To put it bluntly, he was just a selfish person who would stop at nothing. At this moment, police sirens wailed outside the company. Soon, the police came in and forcibly took David away, along with the evidence I had Mark collect for me. And Sarah was already slumped on the ground. I walked up to her and looked down at her. "Sarah, you are suspected of colluding with David to murder me. The reason I didn't immediately file charges against you is because we're not divorced yet. After the divorce, I will appeal your crimes, and you will receive the punishment you deserve." She raised her head, a forced smile on her face. "Pete, you still love me, right? When you were pursuing me, didn't you tell me that you wanted to be with me for life, one love, one heart? Have you forgotten?" I said calmly, "I haven't forgotten, but I was blind back then." After saying that, I turned and left. At this time, the employees of the company had also come back to their senses, and soon, many people resigned. And these people were basically the ones who helped David get me drunk last night. They asked me not to hold it against them when they resigned. I just smiled at everyone's apologies. They were also accomplices, how could I easily forgive them? Don't use life as an excuse, that's not a reason to do bad things. Afterwards, Sarah refused to divorce me in order to avoid being prosecuted. I had no choice but to file a lawsuit for a forced divorce. A month later, the news of David being executed by firing squad became a trending topic, and my relationship with Sarah also came to an end. Sarah was also arrested for being involved in helping someone commit a crime. Years later, I ran into Sarah again on the way to a business summit. But at this moment, she had lost her original glamorous appearance, withered like autumn grass, her neck was covered with red spots, and her figure was thin and weak. Seeing me, she stopped in front of me, her face pleading, "Peter, I'm sick. Can you lend me some money? David deceived me, and I have nowhere to go." I glanced at her, didn't say anything, and left straight away. Later, under my arrangement, Mark went to the hospital, but by that time Sarah had already passed away. In the end, we were never meant to be.